For 3 years, I was the contract husband, the live-in son-in-law of the prestigious Sterling family. I did everything that was asked of me, but to my Ice Queen wife, I was nothing more than a high-end butler. The divorce papers were already on the table, and then suddenly, she changed her mind. My guru said your energy is vital to the company's fortune. You have to stay another 6 months to ward off the bad luck. I had to laugh. She saw me as a feng shui ornament. Fine. You don't want me to go? I immediately picked up my phone and called my father-in-law. Dad, 7 o'clock tonight. The Sovereign Club. My treat. My wife's face went pale. Are you insane? Sorry, the role of the perfect house husband is officially canceled. For the next 6 months, I'm going to turn the Sterling family upside down. The crystal chandelier in the villa's living room was blindingly bright, but it couldn't cut through the icy chill in the air. Claire Sterling, my wife of 3 years and the renowned Ice Queen CEO of Seacrest City, pushed a divorce agreement across the table toward me, holding it with just 2 fingers. Her nails were impeccably manicured, but her voice was devoid of any warmth. The 3-year contract is up. Sign it. $5 million. That should be enough for you. I stared at the papers, a bitter laugh catching in my throat. 3 years. For 3 years, I, Liam Foster, had been the Sterling family's live-in embarrassment. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, I did it all. The greasy clients she couldn't be bothered to entertain, I was the one who had a drink with them. The stomach pains that woke her up in the middle of the night, I was the one who drove across town to find an all-night pharmacy. I lived like a glorified butler, while she, Claire Sterling, had barely even given me a second glance. In her eyes, I was just a social climber leeching off her family's wealth. This $5 million was charity. I picked up the pen, ready to end this ridiculous charade. But just as the nib was about to touch the paper, a cold hand suddenly pressed down on mine. Wait, Claire frowned, as if she'd just remembered an inconvenient chore. I looked up at her. She pulled her hand back, her tone as indifferent as if she were discussing the weather. We're not getting divorced. Not yet. I was stunned. What are you talking about? My father just consulted his spiritual advisor, Claire said, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. The company's going through a rough patch. The guru said your energy is good for the Sterling family's fortune. You need to radiate for another 6 months. I burst out laughing. Claire, what do you take me for? A good luck charm to fix your corporate karma, a human air purifier to adjust the feng shui. So, my 3 years of thankless work meant less to her than the ramblings of some new age guru. Looking at this woman who treated me like an object, the last embers of my patience finally ignited into a full-blown inferno. You want me to leave? Fine. I snapped the cap back on the pen with a sharp click. If I can't leave, I'll stay. And I'll make sure the Sterling household knows what chaos really means. The perfect house husband? As of today, that guy is retired. I pulled out my phone and dialed my father-in-law, David Sterling. Hey, Dad, I said, my voice breezy. Stop letting old man Pete hustle you at checkers in the park. 7 o'clock tonight. The Sovereign Club. It's on me. Claire shot up from her chair, her face a mask of fury. Liam, are you insane? You're taking my father to a place like that. She lunged for my phone, but I sidestepped her easily, a wider grin spreading across my face as I spoke into the phone. It's a date, Dad. I heard their new therapist, number 8, has a magic touch. She'll fix that back pain of yours right up. Before David could respond, I sweetened the deal. Oh, and by the way, I'll pick you up in your Rolls Royce. Hanging up, I looked at Claire's thunderous expression and gave a little whistle. You're the one who didn't want me to leave, honey. You might want to think carefully about these next 6 months. Ignoring the petrified Claire, I walked straight to the entryway, plucked the keys to the Rolls-Royce Phantom, the one she never even let me touch, from the key bowl. The heavy metal felt good in my hand. At 7 o'clock sharp, I pulled the Phantom with its custom license plate up to the entrance of Waterfront Park. My father-in-law, David, was already waiting, his eyes lighting up like a kid about to go to Disneyland when he saw me get out of the driver's seat. Liam, it's about time. Between your mother and your sister, they're running my life like a military school. I was about to go stir crazy. David complained the second he got in the car. He sighed contentedly, sinking into the plush leather seat. I smoothly pulled the car into traffic, smiling. Don't you worry, Dad. From now on, I'll be managing your golden years. The Sovereign Club was Seacrest City's most exclusive private wellness center. It wasn't a sleazy joint, but it was most definitely a place to burn through money. The moment we pulled up, the general manager, Mike, was already rushing out, a wide grin plastered on his face. "Mr. Foster, it's been a while. The usual?" David stared, completely bewildered. He knew this place was expensive, but he had no idea I was a regular. "Mike, I'm treating my dad to a day of relaxation," I said, clapping David on the shoulder. "Give him the full VIP package. And is number 8 available? I want to reserve for him." "You got it, for Mr. Foster. Anything is possible." In the VIP suite, the scent of sandalwood filled the air. David, dressed in a silk robe, soaked in a petal-strewn jacuzzi, humming with pleasure. "Liam, this is a bit much," David said, though his face screamed pure bliss. "Where did you get this kind of money? Did Claire give it to you?" I just smiled, not explaining the origin of my black card. "Don't worry about it, Dad. Just enjoy." Watching my father-in-law completely surrender to the lap of luxury, I started plotting my next move. The conquest of the Sterling family would begin with him. Meanwhile, back at the Sterling villa, Claire finished her work for the day and noticed the house was unervingly quiet. There was no aroma of a home-cooked meal, no sign of Liam bustling about. She called David to ask if he was coming home for dinner, but the call was picked up and immediately hung up. A fire ignited in Claire's chest. That Liam, he actually went through with it. Just as she was about to call again, a new notification popped up on her phone. An Instagram story from Liam Foster, visible only to her. The photo showed David Sterling, a black charcoal mask on his face, soaking in a jacuzzi and flashing a peace sign at the camera with a goofy, ecstatic grin. The caption read, "Just another boring day with a father-in-law." Claire hurled her phone onto the sofa, her chest heaving. "Liam Foster, you just wait." Claire's rage was less than a mild inconvenience to me. From that night on, I officially launched my father-in-law makeover project. Pedicures? That was just the appetizer. "Dad, foot soaks every day get boring. Tomorrow, I'm taking you out on the water." The next day, I pulled a rented Azimut yacht up to a private marina. Of course, it was rented under my real identity. David's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He was wealthy, but Claire was strict with his finances. A purely recreational luxury like this was something he could only dream of. "Liam, how much does this cost for a day?" David's voice trembled as he ran a hand over the polished teak deck. I put on my sunglasses and fired up the engines. "A friend's, it's just sitting here. Don't worry about it." "Dad, you know how to fish? Today we're going for bluefin tuna." Over the next 2 weeks, I systematically corrupted my mild-mannered father-in-law. From deep-sea fishing in the Atlantic and high-stakes Texas Hold'em games in Vegas, to eventually even setting him up with a Golden Years gaming squad and teaching him how to play Call of Duty mobile. David Sterling completely let himself go. He tossed the decade-old polo shirt he always wore and replaced it with a Supreme collaboration piece I bought him. He wore a Cuban link chain around his neck and started peppering his sentences with peace and love. Liam says it called a relaxed vibe. Liam says, "YOLO, you only live once." He became my #1 fan, his daily schedule suddenly busier than his CEO daughter's. Many of the places I took him were so exclusive that even Claire herself wouldn't have been able to get in, which elevated his admiration for me to a whole new level. As for Claire, her quality of life took a nosedive. I completely gave up on housework. The perfect house husband, he no longer existed. When she came home now, she wasn't greeted by a hot 4-course meal, but by moldy takeout containers on the coffee table and mountains of dirty clothes on the sofa. Claire was helpless when it came to domestic life. In 3 years of marriage, she'd never even learned how to operate the washing machine. I'd sit on the balcony, sipping my coffee with my feet up, watching her frantically call a cleaning service only to be told they were booked for the next week. The expression on her face was pure gold. But that wasn't enough. Physical discomfort was one thing, but a mental assault was the main event. I cut off my clandestine support for Sterling Industries. For the past 3 years, all those seemingly risky projects that always managed to pull through at the last minute had my touch. The touch of the legendary anonymous trader, known only as Mr. K. Claire thought it was her own genius. The truth was, without me, she was nothing. Just 1 week after I stopped helping, Sterling Industries' performance started to inexplicably decline. A key supply chain partner suddenly backed out. Two major clients were poached by competitors. The stock price began to wobble. Claire was overwhelmed, working late at the office every single night. She tried to call David, the company's largest shareholder, to discuss strategy and calm the nerves of the board. But where was David? "Oh, honey, I'm busy. Liam's taking me for a spa day. The reception here is terrible. Gotta go." "Claire, don't bother me with company stuff. I'm in the middle of a match with the guys. It's the final round." Claire was losing her mind. She realized she hadn't just lost her free butler. She was about to lose her own father. Finally, after the company's stock dropped for 3 consecutive days, Claire couldn't take it anymore and stormed over to the Sovereign Club. She got her VIP suite number from the manager and kicked the door open. The room was filled with steam. The scene of debauchery Claire had imagined wasn't there. Instead, she was met with an utterly bizarre sight. David Sterling, along with 3 other veteran shareholders of Sterling Industries, were all dressed in robes, each with their feet in a bubbling foot bath. Therapist number 8 and her colleagues were diligently working on them. And me, I was holding a laser pointer, standing in front of a massive whiteboard covered in complex candlestick charts. "Mr. Peterson, you see this formation here? A classic bull flag. We should see a major rally at market open tomorrow." I was in the middle of giving them a lesson. "Liam," Claire shrieked, cutting me off. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her finger was pointed at me, her voice trembling with rage. "What in the world are you doing? The company is about to go up in flames, and you're here, getting pedicures with my father and the board members." The shareholders flinched, awkwardly pulling their feet back. I set down the laser pointer and smiled faintly. "Honey, you've got it all wrong. This is about work-life balance. I'm teaching Dad and his friends how to read the market. This is for the good of the company. You're a kept man, a freeloader. What do you know about candlestick charts?" Claire completely lost her composure, the words spilling out unfiltered. "Dad, you're coming back to the office with me for an emergency meeting." She moved to grab David's arm, but David slammed his hand on the armrest of his footbath, splashing water all over Claire's expensive suit. "Claire, that's enough." David stood up, his beard belly jiggling under the silk robe, but his presence was formidable. He pointed a finger at his daughter's nose and said something that even took me by surprise. "All you ever think about is work, work, work. Do you even know what it means to live? What Liam has shown me. That's what life is all about." Claire was stunned into silence, unable to believe what she was hearing from her own father. David grew even angrier, delivering the final blow. "You know exactly how you've treated Liam for the past 3 years. Let me tell you something, you don't deserve him. If it weren't for Liam being such a loyal guy, I would have told him to divorce you ages ago." The color drained from Claire's face. She looked at her own father, defending me like I was his hero, her lips trembling, utterly speechless. Being publicly scolded by her own father at the Sovereign Club left Claire speechless. She finally retreated, her face a mask of cold fury as she clicked away in her high heels. Did she think I was the end of it? No, this was just the beginning. The word defeat wasn't in the Ice Queen's vocabulary, especially not when it came to losing to her live-in husband. Since she couldn't control David directly, she started resorting to covert tactics. A few days later, I had just finished treating David to a meal at a Michelin 3-star restaurant. David was in high spirits and insisted on paying. "Waiter, credit card," he boomed, proudly pulling out the supplementary card Claire had given him. A few moments later, the waiter returned, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling, but this card has been declined for insufficient funds. I believe it may have been deactivated." David's face turned beet red. At his age, that kind of public humiliation was unbearable. "Impossible. Run it again." The result was the same. David froze, then it dawned on him. He slammed his hand on the table. "That ungrateful daughter. Claire, that little traitor, she actually dared to cancel my card. She's trying to cut me off." Diners at nearby tables turned to look. David, mortified, started sweating profusely. I suppressed a laugh and calmly pulled a gleaming black metal card from my wallet, handing it to the waiter. "Use this one." It was a global, invitation-only Centurion card. The waiter's eyes widened. He took the card reverently and quickly processed the payment. David stared at the black card in my hand, his eyes bulging. Liam, what is that? I pocketed the card and said casually, "It's nothing, Dad. Just some pocket money I made day trading lately." I patted his hand reassuringly. "Don't you worry. Even if she cancels all your cards, I've got you. I'll take care of your golden years." David's eyes instantly welled up. He was so moved he grabbed my hand and shook it vigorously. "My dear boy, you're the best son-in-law a man could ask for. 100 times better than my own daughter. Liam, from now on, I'm your son. No, wait, you're my son." I was laughing on the inside. Winning over my father-in-law was even easier than I'd expected. Claire's attempt to control us by cutting off David's finances had backfired spectacularly, pushing him completely into my camp. And her own troubles were just getting started. Not only had I withdrawn my secret support for Sterling Industries, but I also began to work against it. The crisis at the company exploded. A mysterious capital firm, operating under the code name Mr. K, began aggressively buying up Sterling stock on the open market in a hostile takeover attempt. The methods were fast, precise, and ruthless, executed without any regard for cost. Claire was in a full-blown panic. She was finally realizing that the company's smooth sailing over the past 3 years had been an illusion. Now that the tide was out, she discovered she had none of the skills required to fight a financial war of this magnitude. The company's stock price plummeted. She was buried in work, stressed out in her office day and night. At the same time, my leisurely lifestyle and apparent deep pockets began to arouse her suspicion. That night, she cornered me outside the study. "Liam, that black card. Where did you get it?" She stared at me, her eyes sharp, as if she were interrogating a criminal. I leaned against the doorframe and yawned. "I told you. Made some money in the market. Beginner's luck." "Beginner's luck gets you an invitation-only Centurion card?" Claire sneered. "You've been a freeloader for 3 years. Where did you get the capital and the connections?" "Liam, who are you really?" "I'm your husband," I said with a look of pure innocence. "Honey, has all the stress made you forget?" Claire was speechless with rage. She used every connection she had to investigate my background, but came up with nothing. My true identity was perfectly concealed. The less she found, the more she panicked. Now, fending off Mr. K's takeover was the most urgent priority. To stabilize the company, she desperately needed the support of the largest shareholder, her father, David Sterling, at the upcoming emergency board meeting. She had to swallow her pride and go to David to make peace. But the David of today was completely under my influence. "Dad, the company is in serious danger. You have to support me at tomorrow's board meeting." Claire's voice on the phone was practically a plea. David, who was with me looking at brochures for a new yacht, impatiently put her on speaker. "Support you? Support you so you can run the company into the ground." I gave him a subtle nod, and he immediately understood. "Claire, my dear," David said in a worldly tone, "Liam and I have analyzed the situation. Your skills just aren't there yet. You're too headstrong. This crisis is a necessary detox for the company. You need to learn to let go." On the other end of the line, Claire sounded like she'd been struck by lightning. "Dad, what are you saying? Detox? Let go? Who taught you to say that? Is Liam there with you?" "It doesn't matter who taught me. The point is, I think Liam is right." But what came next would crush Claire completely. She discovered that not only was David refusing to support her, but he had also been privately contacting the other senior shareholders, the same ones who had been getting pedicures with us at the Sovereign Club while listening to my stock market lecture. They had formed a group chat named the Sovereign Club Investors Alliance. Claire learned from an inside source that the alliance had already reached a consensus. At tomorrow's board meeting, they were planning a collective motion to impeach her as CEO. The reason? Lack of competence, leading the company into a major crisis. Claire was utterly dumbfounded. She realized she had been completely sidelined. And the person who had orchestrated it all wasn't some corporate titan, but the Spa Day syndicate led by her own father. And the mastermind behind it all was me, the man she had dismissed as a useless freeloader. Tomorrow was the board meeting that would decide the fate of Sterling Industries. The show was about to begin. The night before the emergency board meeting, the atmosphere in the Sterling Villa was colder than a tomb. I was in the bedroom packing a duffel bag, getting ready to take David on an overnight trip to a hot springs resort. Just then, Claire walked in. She looked exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her normally perfect hair was slightly disheveled. The eternally composed Ice Queen now looked like a cornered animal. Liam. Her voice was hoarse, laced with a tremor she couldn't hide. The company is not going to make it. I zipped up my bag, my movements unhurried. Oh, that's serious. Claire took a deep breath, as if making a monumental decision. She walked right up to me, and I could see the bloodshot veins in her eyes. I know you. That black card. You must know powerful people. She squeezed the words out, each one seemingly tearing at her pride. Can you help me? Just get us through this crisis. I'll agree to any conditions you want. I laughed inwardly. Even now, she still thought I was just lucky, or that I had latched onto someone important. She would rather believe I knew a powerful man than believe I was the powerful man. I turned to face her, putting on the most familiar, harmless smile from the past 3 years. Honey, you must be overworked, I said, my tone full of feigned regret, my eyes wide with innocence. Have you forgotten? I'm just the kept husband who married into money. Corporate takeovers, financial warfare, all that complicated stuff is way over my head. The color drained from Claire's face. She stared at me, trying to read something, anything, behind my mask. I picked up my bag and walked past her toward the door. I paused at the threshold and looked back. Oh, by the way, I'm taking Dad to the Skycrest Mountain Spa tonight. The volcanic ash bath is supposed to be great for the body. Want to come? A little relaxation might do your frayed nerves some good. Claire swayed on her feet, grabbing the doorframe for support, her eyes filled with humiliation and rage. I didn't look back again, whistling a cheerful tune as I went downstairs. Claire, you wanted me to radiate good fortune for another 6 months? Well, I'm radiating so much that your family is in chaos and your company is changing hands. Are you satisfied yet? The next day, at the Sterling Industries headquarters in the top floor boardroom, the emergency board meeting that would decide the company's fate was underway. I didn't go in right away. Instead, I sent my lawyer in first to take control and announce that Mr. K had already acquired a controlling stake in the company's public shares. The purpose of this meeting was to restructure the board. The atmosphere in the room was suffocating. Claire sat at the head of the table, her face as pale as a sheet. She knew she was cornered. The management team she had personally cultivated was powerless to help, while her own father's Sovereign Club Investors Alliance was circling like sharks, ready to vote her out. Her only thought now was to see who this mysterious Mr. K really was, this person who had used such devastating tactics to bring Sterling Industries to its knees in such a short time. The lawyer glanced at his watch and cleared his throat. And now, if you please, we will welcome the representative from Mr. K. All eyes turned to the heavy mahogany doors. Claire's hands were clenched into fists under the table. She was ready to accept her defeat. Creak! The doors swung slowly open. A tall figure, silhouetted against the light, walked in. I was wearing a bespoke, dark gray suit. My hair was perfectly styled, and my leather shoes made sharp, confident clicks on the marble floor. It was a world away from the man who usually wore an apron in her kitchen. The boardroom fell into a dead silence. Everyone was stunned, especially Claire. She shot to her feet, the chair screeching loudly against the floor. Liam, she cried out, her voice cracking. What are you doing here? This is not a place for you. Get out. I ignored her outburst, walked directly to the head of the long conference table, past her, to the seat reserved for the ultimate authority. I pulled out the chair and sat down, steepling my fingers on the polished wood as my gaze swept across the room. Good morning, everyone, I said with a faint smile. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried to every corner of the room. Let me introduce myself. I'm Kay. Boom. The statement hit the room like a depth charge. Impossible. Claire's face was twisted in disbelief. Liam, stop joking around. There's no way Mr. K is a failure like you. She was still trying to fight it, but in the next second, a scene unfolded that shattered her reality completely. Liam, my boy, there you are. David Sterling, her own father, scurried over to me like a loyal assistant, a huge grin on his face, and eagerly picked up a teapot to pour me a cup. Here, wet your whistle. After pouring the tea, David stood up straight, cleared his throat, and announced in his loudest voice to the entire room. I am officially announcing that I am transferring the full proxy voting rights for all my shares in Sterling Industries to the one and only man I trust, my son-in-law, Liam Foster." He looked around the room, his gaze finally landing on Claire, his expression bursting with pride. "I believe that Liam is the true future of Sterling Industries." A 1-2 punch. Claire's body went limp, and she slumped back in her chair, her eyes vacant. So that was it. The smooth sailing of the past 3 years was because of Liam. The current corporate crisis was orchestrated by Liam. Her company had been taken by Liam, and even her own father had been completely stolen by Liam. She looked at me, sitting in the chairman's seat, radiating an aura of absolute power, and finally realized that for the past 3 years, the real fool, the real clown, had been her. The air in the boardroom was frozen solid. Claire sat slumped in her chair, staring blankly at me, the man she had called a failure for 3 years. I paid her collapse no mind, turning to face the other shareholders with an undeniable authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, the hostile takeover is over, because I was the one who started it, and now I'm calling it off." For the next hour, the boardroom became a one-man show starring Mr. K. I mobilized capital to counterattack a few smaller firms that had tried to take advantage of the chaos and completely restructured Sterling Industries' supply chain. The crises that had seemed like the end of the world to Claire were, in my hands, resolved with a few phone calls and a series of keystrokes. For the first time, the Sterling family witnessed the prowess of a top-tier financial genius. When the board meeting concluded, I was the new head of Sterling Industries. As for Claire, Ms. Sterling, in my new office, I slid a stack of documents across the desk to her. "Effective today, you'll be my special assistant. First, go make me a coffee. Black, no sugar. Then I need you to organize this proposal for the next fiscal quarter." Claire's face flushed red, then went pale. She bit her lip, but ultimately, she humiliatingly took the documents. How the tables have turned. The former Ice Queen CEO was now going to get a taste of the service life I had lived for 3 years. Watching her fumble with the high-end coffee machine, spilling grounds all over the counter, was deeply, deeply satisfying. With the corporate crisis averted, Claire finally accepted her new reality. And with that acceptance, it seemed, came a realization of her own feelings. The desperate ex-wife wins him back tour had officially begun, but her attempts were almost painful to watch. One evening, I walked in the door and was hit by a thick, acrid smell of smoke. The kitchen was filled with a gray haze, the smoke alarm blaring. I rushed in to find Claire, her face smudged with soot, standing in front of the stove holding a pan containing a blackened, unidentifiable object. "Cough, Liam, I try to make your favorite barbecue brisket," she said, looking at me sheepishly. I glanced at the lump of charcoal. "Are you trying to win me back or assassinate me?" When cooking failed, she moved on to a new tactic. The next day, as I was sitting on the sofa reviewing financial reports, she sidled up to me, looking serious. "I've been watching massage tutorials. You work so hard. Let me work on your shoulders." Before I could refuse, her hands were on me. In that instant, it felt like I'd been hit by a truck. "Ow!" I sucked in a sharp breath, nearly launching myself off the sofa. "Claire, are you trying to give me a massage or a chiropractic adjustment from hell? You almost shattered my shoulder blade." "Oh, I'm so sorry. The video said to use firm pressure," she yelped, pulling her hand back as if she'd been burned. The look of panic on her face was a far cry from the Ice Queen I once knew. I rubbed my shoulder, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. But Claire soon discovered that the biggest obstacle on her path to winning me back wasn't my coldness, but her own completely converted father. One weekend evening, Claire finally worked up the courage to corner me in the living room. Her eyes were a little red, her tone softer than I'd ever heard it. "Liam, can we please talk? About us." "Liam, let's go. Shoes on, my boy." The front door burst open and David Sterling blew in like a hurricane, his face ecstatic, his voice booming. "Hurry. Therapist number 8 at the Sovereign Club is back from vacation. I heard she learned a new ear-cleaning technique from Japan. It's supposed to be incredible. We have to go now before there's a line." Claire's heartfelt confession was cut short. A vein throbbed in her forehead. "Dad, I'm having a moment with Liam. Can you please stop dragging him to the spa all the time?" David did not like that one bit. He stopped in his tracks and shot his daughter a look of pure disappointment. A moment. What kind of moment? Do you even understand, Liam? David launched into a lecture, every word a dagger to Claire's heart. Do you know if he prefers milk or red wine in his foot soak? Do you know his favorite therapist is number 8, not number 18? You have to put in the effort to win a man back. What do you know? Watch and learn, kiddo. Without another word, David grabbed my arm and started pulling me toward the door. Liam, don't mind her. Let's go enjoy ourselves. As I was being dragged away by my overenthusiastic father-in-law, I glanced back at Claire, who was stomping her foot in frustration but was completely helpless. I finally couldn't hold it in anymore. I let out a laugh. This sweet burden of being fought over by father and daughter. It was actually kind of fun.